Good morning, everyone. I had a look and make sure it's still morning. Thank you for coming to our lunch and learn once again. A little louder. So Linda's telling me I need to be louder, which is surprising. Thank you for coming to our lunch and learn for the month of December. We have a great class ahead of you. First, I'd like to introduce our sponsor for the day. You're enjoying all the food that they help provide. Justin Ingersoll from Detector Inspector is going to come up and talk about his company. Ingerson, sorry. Ingerson. Corrected it. Good. It's fine. You want to come up, Justin?
No.
Yep. Put you on the spot.
That's okay. I was going to go after that.
Go ahead.
My name is Justin Ingerson. I own and operate Rhode Island Detector Inspector. Pretty simple. If you want to avoid the hassle of the smoke detector inspections, you can call, you or your client can call or text me. I'll handle the whole thing. I'll schedule the inspection, I'll bring the house up to code, and I'll meet the fire department there. I do have to say West Warwick is probably the most professional of most of the fire departments, so kudos to you and you guys for that. Yeah, it's pretty simple. I've been doing this for about 7 years now. I'm a one-man show for now. I try to make this as easy as possible for you guys. You have a lot going on, and I know these are one of the last things you want to deal with. So, I can deal with you directly, or you can have your client contact me. I have my cards are left out here, so feel free to give me a call or text, and I'll open it up to Matt.
I got one question.
Yes.
How tall is your ladder?
As tall as it needs to be.
I was in a house, the smoke detector was in the ceiling, it was 20 feet up.
Well, there hasn't been one I haven't been able to reach yet, so.
Perfect.
Any other questions? Sorry.
That's a great question, though.
When you get those up there, it's like, because we change them ourselves.
Yep.
When you get ones that are in, it's like, no, on stairs and stuff like that, like, I'm done.
Yep, give me a
I'm
call.
falling down a set of stairs to change it.
Anybody else?
What do you charge?
I'm sorry, it's $125 plus the cost of the detectors. And I'll pay the fire department fee too. So $125 plus costs. For single family homes, I will do multifamily homes as well. That price ranges a little bit depending on what's involved. So $125. Okay,
Thank you, Justin.
thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the
Thank
food.
you.
Our speaker today is the West Warwick Fire Marshal, Michael Manning. He's going to talk to you about what he's talking about too as well. These a lot of gadgets over here too as well. At some point that he's going to reflect out, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forward.
Bring some props with you.
Yeah, I like props.
Thank you. So Michael is my brother. I'm Matthew.
Matthew, I'm
My
sorry.
mother named us all M's for some reason.
I know.
So you're not the only one
The
that.
family is very M orientated. It's screwing me up.
So thank you. I'm Matthew Manning. I'm the fire marshal for West Warwick. I'm also the assistant fire marshal in Dunn's Corners, which is in Westerly and Charlestown. For anyone who gets down that area, I'm kind of looking to see if there's anyone I recognize. None of them showed up, so they're lost. So that's a great service that you do, because not everyone really wants to climb up on that ladder. You know, it's there's some areas that I've come across that the realtor really she's not sure where these devices should go. So your job there is a great boost to get the inspection passed the first time, and that's why I'm here, getting you to pass the inspection on the very first time. It doesn't always happen. Who here has been failed by one of the local fire marshals? Who's had to pay that $60 reinspection fee? It's annoying. So I'm here to kind of help you get through that, to pass it on the first time, and hopefully we'll all come out of here with some knowledge that you didn't know before. So I'm not going to death by PowerPoint it or by reading everything. So I've highlighted some of the main key points. It's the responsibility of the seller to make sure they have the smoke detectors up. I can't tell you how many times I walk in there and I'm not even in the room 30 seconds and I'm failing someone. And they're like, well, hey, the homeowner didn't do what we told him to do. Falls under responsibility of the seller, but what does this mean? Are you guys free of that responsibility? I mean, are you free of any fiduciary obligations to make sure these devices are in the right place? They're still viable. They're not out of their test date. Are they the correct device for the house that you're putting it in? Or is this do you guys just tell them, hey, give it to the homeowner and say, make it happen, and we'll come back. That happens a bit. Fiduciary duty in real estate requires the realtor to act in the best behalf of their clients. So really, you do right by your clients to ensure they pass the first time. You don't want to have me come back a second time, because I am going to charge you a $60 reinspection fee if it's after the same day. In my office, if we can come back the same day, we will. That way you don't pay that $60 reinspection fee. But there are times that we are so busy that there's no choice other than to reschedule for another day. So I'm trying to prevent anyone from having to spend money they don't have to. So really, a realtor worthy of the title ensures the property owner has all that information. They just don't tell them, hey, put smoke and carbons up. They tell them how to do it. They tell them where to put it. Tell them what devices are needed. This is stuff that you really have to know. It's not a legal requirement on you guys, but you do have a fiduciary duty to act in the best behalf of those clients. There is a pamphlet there that you printed up for me. It breaks it all down by houses and the year the houses were built. And it pretty much tells you what is required in each house. So I skipped ahead like 2 of them, I believe. So anything prior to 1976 is battery-operated smoke detectors, unless it's a 3-family home. Regardless of the age of the house, all 3-family homes are supposed to be hardwired and interconnected. There has been a recent change in the fire code in the 2019 code that now allows, in place of hardwired interconnected, you could be using an approved wireless device. And I'll go into the wireless device, what's approved and what's not approved, a little later on. But easiest way to remember, prior to 1976, battery operated. After 1976, hardwired and interconnected, or an approved wireless. Sometimes you still can have the carbon monoxide can still be battery operated prior to 2002. And let's see here, smoke alarms. All right, hardwired smoke alarms, battery backup, carbon monoxide shall be installed outside the sleeping areas, shall be hardwired. So after 2002, all of the carbon monoxide has to be hardwired. So usually the easiest way to do it is just getting a combination device that has both. You can use, prior to 2002, you can use the plug-in ones. They never used to allow the plug-in ones because people used to unplug them and use the plug for something else. So now as long as the plug-in has a battery backup, they will allow it. And at any time anyone's got a question, please feel free to stop me. After 2002, the smoke alarm at the bottom of the basement, in the basement, you put it at the top of the stairs prior to 2002. After 2002, that hardwired smoke should now be at the bottom. We're not going to make you move it. So if a fire marshal says, hey, that's supposed to be down at the bottom, we're not going to make you move it. It's, when the house was built, when they put that stuff through, it was compliant for that time. All right, heat detectors in the garage. We never put smoke alarms in garages. We don't put smoke alarms in attics. The extreme heat or the extreme cold make the device not function as it should. So as a rule, we would put heat detectors in the garage. Right now, there are no battery-operated heat detectors. They're all hardwired. There's also not a wireless one right now. Kidde has not come out with a wireless heat detector. So there's way to address that, but most contractors today, building houses, they will put the heat detector in the garage. If you have something up in the attic, no one's going up in the attic to change the batteries. It's just like the person with the 20-foot high ceiling. That detector is never getting the battery changed unless someone's gonna go up there. There are some homeowner organization, what do you call it, the HOAs? There are some that they're not doing it anymore. They're like, yeah, we're not sending our guys, our maintenance guys up on the ladder to change it. So now that runs into a problem. That's where your company can really help these people out, because maintenance workers won't get up on a ladder to change that 20-foot high detector. So that's where you come in handy. Just as long as you have that good sized ladder, that'll make it. This happens in West Warwick a lot, and I'm sure it's happening everywhere else. We're converting living rooms to bedrooms. I walk into a house, and right where I expect to find a living room is a bedroom. Well, you've changed it. Now that I've seen it, you have to make sure there is a smoke and carbon monoxide alarm in that area. If it's battery, then that's great. You can just buy a battery operated one and slap it up. But if if the house is after 1976 and it's been hardwired, that gets a little tricky. You have to, wherever there's sleeping arrangements, you have to have protection. You have to have that smoke and carbon monoxide alarm.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily need to be designated as a legal bedroom, but if you see that it's a sleeping area, if you come in to do an inspection, you see a bed in there, that's what you did.
That's my determination. The building official, they may have it where any room greater than 70 square feet and has a window and has a door, they consider that a bedroom. Back in the day,
So what if the house was built, more recent and it's not hardwired in that?
then they're gonna have to put one in. And that's where the new wireless devices have been a great help to people who've either never done it. I have 3 families to this day in West Warwick. There's not many, because we've pretty much found most of them, but we've come across every once in a while a 3-family that's not hardwired. So now it's like trying to fish wire through finished housing. That's not easy. So in this case, the approved wireless devices have been a great boon. So now an electrician doesn't have to spend an arm and a leg and time trying to snake wires through the attic or through floorboards. But there are houses that get by. It's few and far between. If a house is getting by the building official or the electrical official or the fire official without smoking carbons, shame on them. It shouldn't be happening. But in the past it has. You can't. I haven't been in every single home in West Warwick. Been in a good amount of them, but I haven't been in every single one. And every once in a while I get surprised by finding, why is there no smoke alarms in here? And then they panic, and then I have to give them their options, and we give them time to make it happen. But if you're selling the house, that's what I'm finding out, that they don't have it. So now, and we'll talk about when to schedule your smoke alarm a little bit, but this is where it may jeopardize the closing. Because if you have a 3-family that you're trying to sell and it doesn't have compliant smoke alarms, I'm not passing it. So you're gonna have to get an electrician really fast, or you're gonna have to make that building compliant before, or push back your closing. And I don't think that's really not a desirable thing, pushing back the closing. But it happens. Sometimes it happens. And most fire marshals, I know a great many of them, as I'm the president of the Fire Marshals Association, a lot of good fire marshals out there, and they will work with you. But there's certain things that we'll give you time. We just can't say just close on the house and transfer title. We'll deal with it after. That we can't do.
I'd like to add something to that.
Yes.
Well, we work on the coast, he knows what I'm talking about, but a lot of the houses have a 2-bedroom septic, because that's all the town will allow. So when they do a new construction, it's 2-bedroom, but everybody puts a bonus room in. And the bonus room
Afterwards?
ends up with beds. It's always does.
It does.
So that's, if you're ever like listing a house, check to see how many bedrooms it's actually listed for online and check that smoke.
Yeah.
Because if you don't wanna go to the closing like you said,
Well, here's the thing, before I ever walk through the house that you're trying to sell, every single one of you should have been in there. You should be looking to see if this, if this house has what they require. You and I shouldn't be meeting at the house for the first time and someone fumbling for the key lock box, trying to get in. That should already be done. You guys should have already been in there prior to me arriving, just to make sure that, the house, because you can't always take the homeowner's word. If you ask, hey, do you have smoke alarms? They're gonna say, yeah, we have them. Well, the ones they have may look like what's on this table. So that's where you guys come into the game, and you make sure that, all right, this house is after 1976, are they hardwired? If they are hardwired, is the hardwired devices within 10 years? Are they in the right places? It's a lot easier to move a battery operated device than it is to move one that's hardwired. One that's hardwired, unless they're so grossly in the wrong position, I'm going to pass them, because it had to have passed one of my predecessors' inspections prior to that. It's not easy to change one. I've made people add or change, but those were really extreme situations. A battery device can always be changed very easily. You can cover up the hole in the wall later, but and that's where it requires you guys to go in there first. Make sure they have what they need to have. Otherwise, I come in and I fail you, and then we jeopardize tying up the closing. So if you can, that right there is I'm circling the Rhode Island Life Safety Code, otherwise known as NFPA 101 for any of who might be familiar with it. That's law. The fire code is law in the state of Rhode Island. So they've actually, they have made it law. Any newly constructed or converted bedrooms or sleeping rooms shall comply with the requirements for new construction in place. Mm-hmm. So if that requires it to be hardwired, if that requires there to be a smoke in the bedroom and a smoke carbon outside the bedroom, you have to, whatever the current code is, you have to comply with that. If you've converted your kid's playroom in the basement, your kids are grown, they don't need that playroom anymore. But your mother-in-law or another family member wants to move in with you, and you make that a bedroom. Well, now you have to bring that into today's compliance standards. And I don't cover electrical or building. Their codes are their own. But in the town of West Warwick, the building official, the fire marshal, the plumbing inspector, the electrical inspector, we all work together. We actually go on inspections together, rough inspections, final inspections. So we work very well together. Not every fire department has that relationship with them. But if I come across a rogue bedroom, well, I'm going to let the building official and the electrical inspector know that, all right, you have to deal with this, and they're going to deal with it at their end, because that might just save someone's life one day. Let's see. How long does a smoke inspection document last? 120 days. It's a good amount of time to get, once you have that. I've only had like a few sales fall through. It went past 120 days. They had to come back for it. If you're like 120, 123, 125, I'm just gonna reissue you your certificate. I'm not gonna re-inspect, because nothing has changed in that time. But just know that 120 days, that's how long your certificate is good for. If the sale falls through or closing dates get pushed back, be mindful of the expiration date on that certificate. $30 fee for your inspection. If you fail, it's a $60 inspection fee. It's a cost of doing business, unfortunately. And just so you know, it's just not going to be, The $60 fee that we collect for re-inspections, or the $30 initial fee that we collect, it's not going to take us out for lunch. It's, we do use it for fire prevention purposes in that division. I'll tell you, in West Warwick, the biggest fee we've collected for a single property was $240. This property owner and his realtor failed 4 times. And we went back there 4 times, and I finally asked him, like, does this guy have money to burn? Like, I literally told you what you had to do, and his boss didn't care. He's just, oh, we'll write the check. He finally got it done, but it's just not gonna be that one-time $60. If you keep failing, they are going to assess that $60 fee. So there's no cap to that. And in West Warwick, the highest thing that so far is $240. I consider that a failure on both their behalf, your behalf, and mine, because that was 100% preventable. Either I didn't make myself crystal clear on what they had to do, or your end didn't follow through. So I try to avoid that. Yes, sir.
I just want to point out, it's not really the realtor's responsibility. It is specifically in the law.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I mentioned in the beginning, you don't have a legal responsibility, but you do have a fiduciary responsibility to your client you have to make the sale for them. You have to make that whole process as easy as possible for them at the least amount of pain.
Right, but I'm pointing this out because there are some onerous listing agents who will push this off on the buying end of the transaction. And the buyer's agent, the buyer's realtor, certainly has no responsibility. And in fact, it's technically illegal. And when we get into situations where these foreclosures are happening and the listing agent says, I'm not paying for it, the seller's not paying for it, in order for it to happen, sometimes the buyer's agent will take it on. And so I just want everyone to understand that it's the seller's responsibility.
Like you said, there are some really good realtors out there. There are some ones that are not so good.
That are improving.
That are improving, and that's where I'm trying to help. With this, there are ways for improvement, and some just don't care, or maybe they've just been in the game for so long and they're done. I had and I'm not going to make a war story session, but I did have a realtor that I met, and there was something about the device that didn't look correct to me. So I went to go take it down and take a look at the date, and it just came off easily in my hand. It was held by double-sided tape. So I look at this individual. I won't say the name or the company, but this person has been in the game probably longer than I've been alive, and she definitely knew better. And when I asked her and I told her about it, and she goes, oh, well, this municipality lets me do this all the time. Well, I happen to know the fire marshal for that municipality, so I picked up my phone, and this was probably when I wasn't as well trained as I should have been. I left a call on speakerphone so she could hear me. And I asked that marshal, I says, has the code changed? Are we no longer using screws? We're now using double-sided tape? Because so-and-so said that your office allows this all the time. Well, he exploded on the other end of that line. So-and-so is a blanking liar. And I had to quickly fumble and shut my speaker off. I'll get back to you later. And this person was indignant that I called her on it. And her expression to me was like, well, what do you want me to do about it? I want you to find someone to screw it into the plaster, or you have to anchor it securely. And she's like, well, I don't do that. I said, is there someone in your office that can do it, like a maintenance person? Or I mean, everyone's got, you guys all have people, right? Don't you have someone? But now you have this gentleman in the back who'll gladly do it for you. And, but she was so upset that not only would I not pass her, that I was going to charge her again to come out. And she didn't show up the next time. She sent someone else. But you're right, there's some people who care and there are others who don't. And you know, be those professionals that care, that look out for the best interest of their client. Because at the end of the day, it's about selling that house to that, you know, selling that client's house and making it an easy process for them. Yes.
So kind of on that red there. Now, I'm asking this question because a non-real estate attorney said, oh, that's just a suggestion. So is there ever a time where a smoke certification is not necessary?
Transfer of title. In your town clerk or your city clerk's office, they're not going to transfer that title without that paperwork.
So no, there's never, because I said to him, and I sent him this, and where do we find this on MLS again? I used to have it
You
on-
can find that on the state fire marshal's website.
That's what I said to him.
Yep.
And I sent him the purchase and sale, and I was like, whatever it is, you know, section 18 says right here, and he said, oh yeah, but you know, they don't have to.
There is a time when they don't need it, and that's for a foreclosure.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention,
Foreclosure, correct.
and let's all be careful not to conflate a foreclosure with, this is a foreclosure property, so now we don't have to. That often happens as well.
So legally, I can't hold up a title transfer for foreclosed properties. I really don't want to open this Pandora's box.
No, only because I had to answer him, and I.
No. So right now, the only legal avenue that you do not require a smoke certificate inspection is on foreclosed properties. In that case, like during the during the housing crisis, I believe that people weren't getting out. They were holding out cash for keys. You want me out? You got to pay me. And the bank, the people that hold the mortgage can't start the eviction process unless they've had the title transferred back to them.
Okay.
And that's kind of where things got a little squirrely. You know, it's like, well, we can't evict them because we can't start the process, but we can't start the process because you won't do the inspection. You know, so that is the only case where you do not require that.
I kept telling him that, and he wouldn't listen, so I said I should.
Well, he's an attorney, they never listen.
Yeah, I know, on the purchase and sale, he said, look at this, and he was like, oh, it's just a suggestion. It's just not, but.
No.
Okay.
I'm sure there's probably, there's about 50 other fire marshals that would disagree with him, and town clerks. When to schedule your inspection? The town I work for, we try to get at least 10 days prior, you know, because sometimes the house isn't ready. You know, sometimes the wiring system might be so old, the smoke alarms might be outdated. There might be a problem with the interconnectivity with some of the wires. I've had wiring problems where the mice have chewed through the wiring. What I would ask is give yourself enough time. Give yourself at least 10 days before the closing date. You know, if it's 1976 or prior, battery operated devices, it's no problem. But if your house needs hardwired devices, and that 10 days may not be enough time for you to get a licensed electrician in, if the house has to be wired. Changing the devices, easy enough. You know, you can do that yourself, changing the devices out. That'll take 5 minutes. But if that house, though, the property you're going to needs to be wired, or if it's missing a device that's needed on one of the floors, well, now it's going to take you some time to get a contractor to come out there. And you don't want to jeopardize that closing date. So I would say give yourself at least 10 days before the closing date. Try not to call the fire prevention divisions, because I can tell you, I'm lucky enough, I have 3 personnel in my office, but Narragansett, East Greenwich, North Kingston, Dunn's Corner, they're one-man operations. And half the time they have to deal with fire alarm issues, like the local or master box fire alarm issues. not just smoke detector inspections. They may be the full-time firefighter as well. So their workload may not be able to accommodate the same day request or request for a next day inspection. So that's the only thing I would ask. Don't call up a fire prevention division and say, hey, I need it done today. Chances are that won't happen. You know, and next day might even be a stretch, but that's why I say give yourself the 10 days. In most cases, there's a 1 hour window. I get this all the time, like, well, does that mean I show up, you know, anytime between 9 and 10? You have to be there at 9. You know, that 1 hour window is for the fire inspector to show up, which to me is still better than, you know, like Cardi's Furniture delivery guys or cable repairmen. The 1 hour could be the previous house may have failed, or I've had to stop inspections to respond to an emergency across town. That like all right, we need you here right now. I got three realtors to meet in the next 2 hours. I have to either cancel them or push them back, and I'll notify my clerk, and she will call each and every one of you to say, you know, the inspectors are going to be delayed or they won't be there at all. So that is what that 1 hour window is for. You know, sometimes an inspection will go flawlessly. The sign of a great realtor, they got everything done correctly. Other times it's a horror show, and I may be very late in getting to the next one. Let's see. Most of the time we are on time. Does anyone have any problem with like really chronically late fire marshals?
No.
You know, for the most part, you know, we're not going to stretch ourselves too thin. In West Warwick, I can do, if it's just myself, I can do 3 an hour, going from, you know, one end of town to the next. You know, my clerk is fantastic. She kind of blocks them all together by district in the town, so it makes it a little bit easier. But there are some times I may have to go from one end of town to the other, and that might make me late for your appointment. So please bear with us. If we are late, usually there's a very good reason for that. What is a code compliant and acceptable smoke and carbon monoxide alarm? In Rhode Island, they, I think we were talking earlier about UL and FM Global. They're listing agencies, and they're the ones that test your product to make sure that it is a good device. So, and that it works. So right here on this first alert device, you can barely see it, and you guys can come here later and take a look at these. It's the symbol is ETL. There's also UL, Underwriters Laboratory. Those are the only 2 recognized testing labs that Rhode Island recognized. There's plenty of devices that you can use. There's KITA, BRK, First Alert. There's many of them that will have the UL or ETL. The problem runs into when someone buys some junk device off of Amazon. There's like, ooh, I can get a combination device for $15, $20. That right there should be the dead giveaway, because a combination device is at $50 minimum. Is that what it's, yeah, if you're getting a device that cheap, there's a reason for it. It might be fraudulent. There has been some very fraudulent devices brought over from China. One of the giveaways would be a dual listing system. They might have UL sticker and a CE sticker on it. Well, UL will never ever co-list a device. When they test a device, it is only their stamp on there. They're not going to take the word for another one. So if you see 2 listing agencies stamped on the back of a device, it's a fake. And the ones that during COVID, people were buying the same Amazon ones over and over and over, and I had to fail them each and every time. You said my office failed you for the Amazon devices.
Yeah.
Chances are they weren't UL or an ETL approved device. So if you can write that down or just memorize it, if you keep devices in your car, I would say just keep like a spare battery devices in your car. I wouldn't waste money keeping spare hard wires, although I did have one realtor, she did. She must have had money to burn. But keep spare devices in your car and just make sure they're either Underwriters Laboratory or ETL. In Rhode Island, those are the only two that's going to be allowed. And if there are some fire marshals, it might get by. I can't answer for them. If I hear all the time, so and so lets me use them in Cranston, or so and so lets me use them in Little Compton. They shouldn't be. These are the only two devices, testing agencies that should be used for your devices. These are the Amazon ones. So we don't endorse any particular brand name, but right here, Kidda, BRK, First Alert, Gentex, Universal, FireX, USI Electric. These are the ones that are approved. They are approved by the state of Rhode Island. Those right there. There may be one or two that I'm missing, but I thought I did some fairly decent research into all the UL and ETL listing devices. So you have the brochures, correct? For the from the state fire marshals. Did everyone get one of those? You can find those on the website as well. You don't have it.
This?
Nope, that's just a recall one. Here's one right here.
Yeah, I have.
This one right here. You have that one? Does everyone have one of these? Yeah, that comes straight from the state fire marshal's office. That is an awesome guide to help you with. Keep them in your clipboard in your car. Pretty much tells you the same thing I did in the beginning, where you broke it down by the years. They do it here. Just seeing if there's any information on here that I did not get to. All right. Can a wireless smoke and carbon monoxide alarm be used in place of a hardwired device? Yes. Well, I should say it depends. There are two kinds of wireless smoke devices. And there is a truly wireless one. It's the Kidda P4010, P4010. That is truly wireless. There's no wires to it whatsoever. That is the only truly wireless device allowed by the state fire code. But there's also a hardwired wireless. It's a device that you still have to hardwire to a power source. It's just the transmission of the alarm. Instead of having that red travel wire, it's done wirelessly. So the interconnectivity is done wirelessly. But the device still has to be hardwired to a power source. Or you can use, and I've seen some people do it, they have replaced their hardwired devices with these more expensive Kidda P4010s. I don't know why they're more expensive. I don't think anything really beats the hardwired device. I think there's a lot less chances of failure. Some of these devices have had problems within 5 or 6 years, and they're supposed to be good for 10. They haven't worked all the bugs out. You're always better off going with a hardwired device, in my opinion. But when you can't use a hardwired device, you can use a wireless device. And a truly wireless device, there's only one accepted by the town. Does anyone have any questions on that? There is only one device. It's called the Kidda P4010, 4010. That's the only wireless device you can use. All right. You can tell the hardwired device, they have a black and white wire within it. The third wire is a travel wire. It could be red, or some of the older wiring in houses back then, the travel wire was an orange wire. So red or orange, that's your travel wire for that. I think we go right here with the P4010s. Right now, at this time, it's the only acceptable truly wireless device. Check with your fire marshal if you have any questions. If you're not sure of a particular device, call the fire marshal's office. Call your local marshal and say, hey, look, this is the device I want to use. Can I use it? Is it a wireless device? Yes. What kind of wireless device? And we're going to tell you whether or not. And when in doubt, if I do this, I can't say for every other marshal, but when in doubt, give us a call. If we have the time, we'll come and do a walkthrough. If you're not sure where something goes, call your local marshal. We'll come and we'll do a quick walkthrough. If we have the time to do it, we will. And at least this way, we're telling yes, one has to go right here, one has to go above that door. Don't be hesitant to call. I can't answer for all of them, but I can assure you, if the marshals have time, they will send someone to assist you including the basement.
Okay, so if it's been renovated recently, they all have to be interconnected, correct? And if the basement is not connected, the basement looks like it's 1905, everything else looks newer. That means that the basement,
I would have them run one downstairs.
okay.
But there's also, now here's where we get into the weeds. There are wireless devices that will connect to hardwired devices. So you could have a wireless, if everyone else is hardwired, second, third, fourth floor, all hardwired, but there's nothing in that basement, you can put a wireless device in there and have one similar one on any of the other levels, and that's hardwired. They'll talk to each other. When one goes off, all the other ones will go off as well. You'd have to. I've seen that mainly with the Kidda devices. All the new Kidda devices have been interconnected with each other, so you could probably do that if you had to. I've had people convert garages into second bedrooms. Well, you have to have a smoking carbon inside there, whereas the rest of the house might not have anything, just batteries. I can't mandate it, but what I would do is they have to have a hardwired smoking carbon inside the newly renovated garage. What I would recommend is they hardwire one into the house, one device into the house. You don't have to do any of the other ones on any of the other levels, but if the garage is going to be, if it's an attached garage, I would put one in the house. It's very simple for them to do that, to hardwire one into the, have them add one extra one. And at least someone will have, at least they'll have something ringing inside the existing house if something happens in the addition.
You don't need one on a detached garage, is that correct?
If, to be connected with the house, no. But if you're having a bed, anywhere where there's a bedroom, if you have a detached garage and you want to make that an in-law, you still have to have a.
But it's not an in-law.
But it doesn't have to be connected with the existing house, no.
What if it's not in bed? Nothing, just a garage?
Oh, if it's just a garage, no.
And what if you have a walk-up unfinished attic with the stairs going right up to the attic? Do you need something up there?
No. Are they planning on doing with that upstairs anytime in the basement? In the future, are they going to do anything with that?
Well, it's a listing of mine, and I occasionally see kids have sleeping bags up there. The kids are going up there.
I see this a lot down in South County. If you're gonna have if you have a garage with a bonus room, it doesn't hurt to put one up there because you know very well they're going to put people in there.
Well, this is a walk-up staircase from a bedroom, walking right up into the attic. It's not finished or heated up there.
No.
Kids go up there.
No, if it's not finished, if it's not heated, we do not want a device up there at all because it's just gonna malfunction. Are you guys in charge of changing out the hardwired devices? No. Legally, you're not required to do it. Well, are you going to have the 90-year-old lady up on a ladder changing her own device? You're still not required to do it, it's been my experience, a lot of realtors and fire inspection personnel, I won't change out hardwired devices. You know, it's like, I don't wanna be responsible if I short something out, or, you know, like, if I have to take this down from the ceiling, undo the wire nuts, take everything out, I shouldn't be doing that, and really neither should you. It's not a difficult process, you know, you just remember to shut the power off to that device that's powering the smoke alarms, or just do one wire at a time. But we shouldn't be doing that. That's what they have electricians for. That way there's no legal issues, if you screw something up, or if you don't attach something the right way, well, the fire marshal changed that out. You know, they did it for us. No, I don't want that responsibility. So you really shouldn't have to do that, and that's what that gentleman in the background's for, you know? Give out a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Give out a lot of cards.
Sponsor the right lunch.
You know, if the property owner isn't comfortable swapping them out, they can call an electrician or someone who does this work professionally. You may have a dedicated staff member to do this for you. I do have some realtors that they have what they refer to as their minions, and they come out and they change out all the smoke alarms for them before they even get there. If you're lucky enough to have, the staff to do that for you, that's fine. Otherwise, you can go with a third party to have it done for you, and then you don't have any problems. If you are changing out a hardwired device, this right here is what they call it the pigtail. And there's going to be similar colored wires coming from the ceiling. Some people just, if they can, all they do is they replace the outdated device and they plug in a new one. Depending on how old it is, the plugs aren't going to match. But in some cases they may. We still recommend changing out the pigtail. It comes with the device. There may be a problem with it. I mean, you really should swap out the pigtail along with, when you swap out the device, swap out the pigtail. Don't use the old ones. Don't use the adapters. Because half the time you're going to have to, the adapters that you use, now you're going to try and stuff them back up into the electrical box, and the device may not screw in securely if it's jammed in there. So if you do swap out hardwired devices on your own, just make sure you change out the pigtails too. Comes with the device, use the one that comes with it. You'll never have a problem. And again, when in doubt, call the marshal of that municipality. I've yet to meet one that won't come out, or won't return it, or won't take a phone call. I haven't come across anyone who won't do it. So I'm going to speak on behalf of all of us. Call them. Two structures on one property. These are considered two separate inspections. We've had like 3 families. It would be a 2-family in the front and a 1-family bungalow in the back. When you make your appointment, that's 2 separate inspections, just so you know. And we found this out. We were doing them. We were charging $30 for 2 separate inspections for the longest time. Before they're like, well, no, really, it's one separate building from the other one. So you would have to have 2 separate smoke detector certificates, one for each building. It's not a money-making grab, not for $30, but legally, you have to have that inspection certificate for each structure. So if you have multiple structures on one property that you're selling, be prepared to fill out for how many buildings you have to be inspected. You're gonna have to fill out an application for each one. Devices in garages or attics. Smoke alarms should not be placed in areas that have extreme changes in temperatures. So heat detectors don't go in garages and attics. Heat detectors go in garages and attics exclusively. I don't really see too many in the attics because no one's crawling through the scuttle hole to change out the battery. Whereas the one in the garage, yeah, it's easily accessible. Now these are my own suggestions. This has nothing to do with the fire code. If there's snow on the ground, shovel a path for your inspector. You would, if it was for a potential buyer, if this was an open house. If I'm going to come out to the house and I'm trudging through ankle-deep snow, I'm not going to be a happy person. It really, it's a lot, and it's safer. You don't know what you're stepping on. I'd hate to see, I've seen realtors in dress shoes, male and female, that, they've slid on the ice. They step thinking they're stepping through snow, and they're stepping through a big pothole underneath because of the dog dug. If you can, shovel a path just to the door, just so we can get in safely. Get the inspection before we arrive. I can't tell how many times I've pulled up and there's, someone just sitting in their car playing Candy Crush, not paying any attention to, I'm just standing at the door waiting on them. They finally will come to the door and they'll fumble with the lockbox key, and when we get in, I take one look and I says, you failed. Because I'm seeing one of these yellow devices. They didn't come in to see if the homeowner did what they're legally supposed to do, swap out the devices. They just didn't do their due diligence. So really, I think the last week I had someone meet me at the door. He says, turn around. He goes, I'm not gonna pass. And I said, well, what's going on? He goes, I'm missing a device down in the basement. So let's take a look. So I looked around the house and I started popping ceiling tiles, and I finally found the one he was missing. So he was going to cancel the appointment for no reason. He would have found it eventually, and I would have had to charge him to come back out again. So go in there. If it's not, if the house isn't ready, if you're not gonna pass, you can just call the fire department's office and say, cancel the fire inspection. We're not going, we're not ready. There's no fee for that. But if we get there and we fail you, that's a different story. I've had key lock boxes that have changed. I don't know why, but they this is the code, and then they call the office and they go, no, this is a different code now, we're using a different box. And that was after her trying 15, 20 times, and then going to all the windows, trying to, see if we can get into the house. Get there a couple minutes before. It really will make things go a lot smoother for you. Expect the unexpected to happen. I had, and this isn't my idea, this came from a realtor. I wish I knew her name. I think I told you about her. She had a Makita tool bag that would make any carpenter jealous. And she had every tool in there. She had every drill imaginable. And she was the one that had the spare smoke alarms, spare carbons, and spare hardwired devices. And she was a pro. I don't know if she was a carpenter previously, but she was fantastic. And she had everything. She had a step stool. How many people have a step stool in their car? Who's got a screwdriver? Battery operated. Who's got a drill? There's something I would say, get a little plastic bucket like this or a tool bag, and keep these items in your car. It doesn't have to be a drill, but it could be an electric screwdriver. I say a drill only because if we have to put something in some of these older houses in the basement, how dense is some of that old wood? You're not getting in there with the screwdriver. It's almost impossible. But if this would be some of the stuff I would suggest having in your car. And some guys look at me like, you're crazy, why are you telling them to put in electrical tape? Because we don't want them to change their own. Some people are going to change their own devices. You might as well have wire nuts, you might as well have the correct tape. Have sheetrock screws. The silver screws that come with every brand new smoke detector, they're awful. You're going to strip them, especially if you're trying to put it in really dense wood. Sheetrock screws are definitely, you can never go wrong with that. You don't need an anchor. You can put them in the plaster. Anchor's always a good idea, but they'll go right into plaster, no problem. Or at the very least, just have an old-fashioned screwdriver. I'm amazed how many people don't have the bare necessities in their car. A tape measure, just so you know, a smoke detector can't be within 3 feet of a air vent or the tip of a ceiling fan blade. The very end of the ceiling fan, I can't, and you'll see pictures, but they have to be 3 feet from any device that will alter the air current. So having a tape measure is a great idea. I think I made a stick for Maria. It was a 3-foot dowel, wooden dowel, and I would have measurements on it. You know, a 36-inch mark for, you know, to measure away from there. A hook on the end to pull down to test an emergency light. I don't know, what, do you still have that?
Yeah.
All right.
To push
But I mean, so you can test all these things yourselves just to make sure they work, because you're not gonna reach a smoke detector without a stick. So the 3-foot, you know, the yard stick or the wooden dowel is the best thing you could possibly have to self-test. Any questions on this? This can go in a plastic bucket, easily fit into your trunk of your car, or it can just go in a Makita bag. You don't need all of that stuff, but you should have at least something, especially a spare smoke alarm, smoke carbon, and something to screw them in.
And batteries.
And batteries, yeah, always have the spare batteries. It costs, you know, it's the cost of doing business, but it's a lot easier than you having to pay $60 for me to come back because your smoke alarms didn't have batteries in them. Or they were in the wrong place and you had nothing to take the device down or put one in the place that it needed to be. Again, be wary of unapproved devices, frequently bought cheap from Amazon. Amazon's not a bad thing. I have packages come to my house every day from Amazon. But it's the devices, if you're buying the devices super cheap, that should be a warning for you. You know, they're not, you know, no combination device should cost $15. So be wary of buying something that's too good to be in testing agency, and it's not, we don't recognize it for smoke alarms. They might be good for fire extinguishers, toasters, phones, phone chargers, but not for smoke alarms. Here's a CD listing again. Always check for recalls. Whatever you buy, if you're going to be buying, like some people buy in bulk, before you buy them, check to see if there's a recall on that device. And I think that I did leave a listing, a ditto, that of all the recent Kita, there's about 6 of them that have been recalled since 2019. So they're right there on the table if anyone wants to grab one later. No listing on this device at all. There's no listing. If there's no listing on a device, that's no good. It's probably a counterfeit device. Approved hardwired smokes. This is good. It has its UL listing right here. Will this pass? You have no idea how many times I walk into an inspection and I find this. And it infuriates me because I'm like, why am I here? You know, didn't you guys go through the house prior to me getting here? You would have found that and you would have said, hey, look, let me reschedule for tomorrow or later on in the day if possible. I gotta run out and get a hardwired device. That's an automatic fail right there. Will this pass? Remember I was telling you, this is the tip of the fan blades. So it's gotta be at least 3 feet from this. Right here, this ceiling fan was most likely put up after the smoke detector was installed. Still, not passing. Now these things are archaic. You can tell just by looking at them. They don't even make this device anymore. This thing is geriatric, and there are some that they still work. You push the test button, and they're loud. I'm like, they're really loud. But the element in them that might detect carbon, or they made the carbon monoxide alarms have an element in them that start to decay at the 5, 6, 7 year mark. So that's why there's a shelf life on the carbon monoxide alarms. But some of the smoke detectors, you push the button, they'll still work, but they might not pick up the smoke if you're cooking something and something gets burned. So if you see something like this, unless the person's a heavy smoker, you're never going to have yellow smoke detectors. Yellow smoke detectors are indication of being very old, or the person smokes 10 packs a day. And in that case, they're usually gonna put a bag over the device or take it down, or take the batteries out. These are old, these are the expired smoke alarms. And I have plenty of examples right here. They don't have a battery backup. That's how you know it's expired. Aside from it being yellow, and you can tell that the date on them, it'll tell you when it expired. But the fact that they don't have a battery backup is a dead giveaway. If they don't have a battery backup on there, they're not good. Just looking at some of these, like, you know, you'll be able to tell, after a while, you can tell what's a current device and what's not current. That's the one I was looking for. It's in my car somewhere. That is so old, but that's one of the loudest devices I have ever heard. It's actually louder than, I want to say it's the first alert. It's almost octagon shaped. That's probably the loudest device on the market. You're not going to sleep through that. I love this. Here's my smokers. Right here. That's the very first thing they do. They'll cover them up because they don't want to set the smoke alarm off. So they'll put plastic over it. Instead of going outside or or opening the window, they just cover up the plastic. And that's not going to help them when they go to sleep. After they finish smoking their cigarettes, they go to sleep and something happens. Well, that smoke alarm's not going to go off until the plastic melts. And by that time, it's way too late. Smoke alarm placement. There's been some changes since I made this slide. So this was the stick I was telling you about right here. It has different markings on it. I use it for more than just smoke detector inspections. I use it on other inspections if I have to reach an emergency light. I could either use it to push a button or I have a hook on the end that can pull down on a toggle switch. But usually it should never be any closer than 4 inches from the ceiling, and the top should never be greater than 12 inches. So that right there is a good position for a wall-mounted smoke detector. That is not a good placement. It's too low. It's far too low. And by the time the smoke banks down, you've already given it about 5 minutes of a head start. So it's too low. Between 4 and 12 inches. Between 4 and 8 inches is perfect. Would you agree? Is it Justin?
Yeah.
Okay. The top of the device just can't be greater than 12 inches, and that is. So it would probably be up here. So, between 4 and 8 inches is the perfect place to put the device. You don't want it really jamming into a corner. That's some of the things that have changed. They said that you no longer, can enforce that. I disagree, but if you put it, if you're wall mounting them, between 4 and 8 inches is perfect. Really, a smoke inspection is the only part of your transaction where you guys have control over that. Really, it is. The people don't. The general populace doesn't know about smoke detection. And after today, hopefully, I've given you a little bit more that you can use out in the field. But the 90-year-old person selling their house, they go into an elderly high-rise. They're not going to know what kind of smoke detector to get, where to put them, and that's kind of where you guys come into play. And hopefully, the information that you have on the brochures in front of you, and kind of what I went through today, will kind of help get those transactions passed with no problems. Is there any questions? Yes.
I'll continue to use the combo units for the smoke and CO, but my understanding is the CO is a gas, so the optimum location would be a lower location for that if you were to plug it in, correct?
For carbon monoxide expands exponentially in all directions. There's no good or bad place to put it. You can put it anywhere. Because carbon expands in all directions at once. Whereas the smoke alarms, no, that's different. There's a very specific place that you want them.
Is there a way to find out where a property is serviced if they're in a fire district Coventry, for example, Westerly. I saw it once or twice on the tax card, but there are other times I had to call the fire department and bother them and to find out which fire district services that property.
Well, Coventry, Westerly is, and that's where I'm in Dunn's Corners. They have Squamicut, they have Cross Mill, I mean, they have so many different districts. If you call up, let's just say you're in central Coventry and your house is in Anthony, you get central, they can say, oh, that's not our property, we're gonna refer you to the Anthony Fire District or the Western Coventry Fire District. So whoever's taking your appointment, if they don't know that the district is not in their.
They know, I just, instead of calling the wrong district, I was wondering if there was a way to determine it.
That's Casella with it being the tax bill in Coventry. and then tell
Yeah,
you the tax-
nope, that would actually be the correct way to do it. Because there really is no, there's nothing out there that I'm aware of that would tell you exactly what district that particular property is in, because they're just looking at it as Coventry. They're not looking at it as in Anthony, Harris, Phoenix. Anyone else? Yes?
The heat detector you mentioned for newer garages, is that the same thing that goes above a furnace, like that red one?
Nope, that is the Firematic, what that does is it will cut power to the furnace. That is not it's not a fire
It's not a heat
alarm.
detector.
It's not a heat detector.
Okay, all right.
Those are usually Firematics, there's an actual term for them that's escaping me right now, but that's not the same thing, no.
Okay. Do you inspect that too? Do you
No.
make sure? Who does that?
We don't. Well, when your house is built and you being granted a CO, your plumbing and mechanical inspector will go there to make sure it is, it's in the proper position.
Oh.
It can be facing the wrong direction, and it doesn't really, I mean, there are ways that, whoever the inspection discipline is, they should pick that up. So that would fall in the plumbing and mechanical. That wouldn't fall under the fire department, we don't do that. Without getting into too much into the weeds, there are times we do, but not for the sale of a home.
Okay.
There's gotta be questions somewhere.
Be very thorough.
Well, feel free to come take a look at these devices, and at least it kind of gives you an idea if you're looking at the back of them, where it'll tell you your expiration dates. It'll let's see, expiration dates. They can tell you whether it's what kind of batteries they use. These all right here, every single one of these are obsolete, with the exception of this one. These are still on the market. They might look a little bit different, but these are still fairly new. This one, I believe it was because I probably just used this as a training device. But all of these right here are all obsolete. They're no longer functioning. So if you walk into a house that you're trying to list or that you have to meet a fire inspector for, cancel it before they get there, because you're gonna fail if you have any of those devices there.
Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if I thoroughly confused anyone, you can ask me any other questions.
We also have obviously resources available to you. These are recorded, so this is on our YouTube channel as well as on our Camp Washington website, as are all of our other ones.
I'll pay it forward. I'll put the
It's a resource for you guys to use in your business to actually learn about the things that you might not be so sure about. Just being one example of that. We have several of them. So if you get a chance, go look at our YouTube page or go on the Camp Washington website, go under the lunch and learns in there. You can see the different programs that we've had over the last few years. Buyer's agreement, we just had a month ago. Dean was on there too as well. Those will all be available. The